750,000 people living in Jerusalem. 2/3 are Jews, 1/3 are Islamic, and about 2% are Christian. Sorry, I upset you. In Jesus' day, there were about 80,000 people living in Jerusalem. About 3 times the size of Gibraltar, is that right? Yeah. And so people would gather to Jerusalem and come through the year because there were festivals and celebrations that took place in this city of Jerusalem. So the boy I'm talking about today lived in, the story took place in Jerusalem. And it took place in the temple. Now Solomon built a beautiful temple in Jerusalem. Beautiful, the best of everything. And Jews would gather 3 times a year at least for the festivals that had been ordained in the Old Testament. There was a Passover festival, Festival of Unleavened Bread, Feast of Tabernacles, different festivals. And Jews would come, and Jerusalem's numbers would increase. Up to about 250,000 people could be in the city during the times of the festival. So you can imagine everyone coming and descending on this beautiful temple that Solomon had built. Now that temple was wiped out in 500 years before Christ. The Babylonians came and destroyed it, took all their gold away. And we know about Daniel and Ezra, read about them. Another temple was built 70 years later, and it lasted, and it was the temple that Jesus would attend when he was here. And that temple was wiped out about 70 years after the birth of Christ. And so this story today, we read in the scriptures, took place in this temple. The characters in the story today, first of all, there are the parents. And this is about Jesus. And the characters in the story of Mary and Joseph. So if you've got your Bible, can you turn to Luke chapter 2? And let's pick up the story. And what do we learn from Jesus when he was just a boy? Luke chapter 2. And I'm going to read from verse 21. Luke chapter 2, 21. On the 8th day, when it was time to circumcise the child, he was named Jesus, the name that the angel had given him before he was conceived. When the time for the purification rites required by the law of Moses came, Joseph and Mary took him to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord, as it was written in the law of the Lord. Every firstborn male is to be consecrated to the Lord, and to offer a sacrifice in keeping with what is said in the law of the Lord, was to be a pair of doves or 2 young pigeons. So Mary and Joseph came to Jerusalem because after Mary had given birth to Jesus, she was ceremonially unclean. And so therefore she had to come to the temple and make an offering, either of a lamb, or if you were from a poor family, it would be doves or pigeons. Doves or pigeons, doves or pigeons. So the fact that she sacrificed 2 birds means from a poorer family. So she came to give this sacrifice to the Lord, and by making the sacrifice, it's like she's redeeming her son back. Because she's ceremonially unclean, according to what Leviticus says, she's making an offering and she's getting her son back. And so Mary and Joseph did what was written in the word of the Lord. They were good parents who loved God and served him and wanted to bring their children up in the way of the Lord. As I look at that, I want to ask the parents in the room, and the parents one day will be parents, just the importance of the traditions that we have. Because what we model in our homes, we want to pass on to our children. And we'll see how Mary and Joseph, how they continue their traditions year by year by year as we come down to the next part. Let's go back to Luke chapter 2. Let's look at the other characters in the story. So reading from the very beginning, chapter 2 and verse 8, we see that here's the birth of Jesus. And so chapter 2 is all about the young boy Jesus. At the beginning of the chapter, verse 8, there were some shepherds. And the shepherds who lived there, they came to see Jesus. And in verse number 11, it says, "Today in the town of David, a Saviour is born to you." So here we learn something about this boy Jesus. He is going to be the Saviour of the world. And that was what has been revealed to the shepherds here. Another character in the story, let's read a bit further down. Let's go to verse 25. There was a man in Jerusalem named Simeon, a righteous and devout man. And in verse 30, it says, "My eyes have seen your salvation." So one, Jesus is our Saviour. To the shepherds, to Simeon, he says, "I've seen your salvation." And the one message of this book that we're reading today is about the salvation of the world through this Saviour. The one message through every page. So Simeon's a character in the story. And the other character, verse 36 in the story, there was also a prophet whose name was Anna. She was very old. She lived for a long time, and verse 37, night and day she worshipped and she fasted and she prayed. And when she saw Jesus, it talks here about the child who were looking forward to the redemption of Jerusalem. So this boy Jesus, announced as a Saviour to the shepherds, announced as salvation to Simeon, and Anna talked about the redemption of the nation, the people of God. So this is the birth of this boy that we know Jesus today. So that's the setting for our story. It took place in the temple. These are the people who were there, and now we come to when Jesus was 12 years of age. What do we learn from him when he was 12? So let's continue looking at the scriptures. So it says, verse 41. Verse 40. Joseph and Mary did everything that they were required to do according to the law of the Lord, and the child grew. The child grew. So a factor in Jesus' growth was parents who followed the law of the Lord and did what God required of them to raise the children in the way that they should. So if we want our children to grow, parents, we have a role in that as well. So, verse 41. What's the first two words in verse 41? Michael. First two words in verse 41. Have you got it?
Now his.
Version, that.
What version? What's yours, man?
I've got NIV every year.
Every year. Every year. It says every year Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the feast of the Passover. Every year. That was their tradition. That was their commitment to God. That was their commitment to their responsibility to raising their children. Every year. I wonder what traditions you were brought up in. If you are a follower of Jesus and you grew up in a home where Jesus was worshipped, I wonder what traditions you might have had. That's the question to be answered. What traditions? I grew up in a home where my parents did not follow Jesus, so I did not have that heritage. My wife grew up in a Christian home. Every night around the dinner table, the Bible was opened after the meal. The scriptures were read. Every night.
My father, when he was young, he was Church of England, and he used to sit down at the table. Mother had a round table in the living room, and he used to tell a story of Jesus. So we did have the roots in that beginning when we were young.
Yeah. Lovely. Other traditions.
In my house, every Sunday, we prepared to go to the church.
Sunday was a tradition. Yeah, good.
We went Sundays and sometimes in the mornings before school.
Before school, you would
Go to church.
go to church before school.
On weekdays.
Yeah.
I grew up in Africa in a Christian family, so we're all like committed church goer with my parents, my mom. So I was brought up going to church every Sunday, every Bible studies and all the church activities. We were always attending.
When I was in Cameroon, in Africa, some churches started at 7 o'clock in the morning, finished at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So, what time we finish today, Martin? Depends on me, so.
You decide.
In our family, my wife and I have 3 children. We followed my wife's tradition of family. We'd read the Bible each night after a meal. And then we would have a prayer time. We'd have a photo album, photos of people on each day of the week. So on Tuesday we'd pray for Tuesday, and his photographs of family members, neighbours, people we work with, and we'd all pick someone to pray for. And the photos of their children know this is real. So that's a tradition that we have. Mary and Joseph, every year, they would go to Jerusalem. Let me explain that for a moment. These 3 young people here, if your parents said to you, on Sunday, we're going to walk to Malaga. Is that how you say it? Malaga? Malaga. We're going to walk to Malaga. How would you feel about that? No. That's what Mary and Joseph did every year. They walked to Jerusalem, which is about the same difference. Distance here to Malaga. That's their commitment. Yeah.
That's a long walk.
And it's a long walk, yeah. So, yeah. So raising children and passing on your values takes work, it takes effort. So let's go back to scripture. Every year they went to Jerusalem, and when he was 12 years old, they went up to the festival according to the custom, their habit. After the festival was over, while his parents were going home, the boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but they were unaware of it. You might think, what sort of parents are Mary and Joseph? How can you forget your child unaware of it? Have you ever forgotten your child? Anyone? Oh, you have? Okay. For 3 days? Few minutes. Were they bad parents?
No.
The answer is no. Let's explain why I believe they weren't bad parents. We read in our English Bible, I'm not sure about Spanish, maybe the same, we read the word family quite often, English word family. That English word in the Old Testament comes from a number of different Hebrew words. 2 most commonly are used. One of the words, bahith, means household, the people in your house. Another word, mishpahor, means the community, the extended family, the other believers, the other people in the community. So when we read mishpahor, we read family in our English Bible. Family is both household and community. And when mishpahor is working, you can go back home and think, well, if Jesus is not by my side, he's in the community, someone's got him. Uncle Ben, Auntie Anna. So I believe, as I read that they went back, and even though Jesus wasn't with them, they had confidence he was somewhere within the family, the broader family. But after 3 days, they thought, I wonder who has got Jesus. Go and find out who it was. We've lost some of that extended family, haven't we, in our society today? We've also lost some of the bahith, where families are not being families and raising children to love Jesus and the traditions. So we need a combination of both bahith, household, and mishpahor, community, It's a joint responsibility. Some of you are here today because Bahith worked for you. Your parents raised you up. Others of you are here because Mishra Hall maybe. And for me, that's my story. My parents sent me to Sunday school. And so the community there was where my faith grew. Some of you are here because of people prayed for you, like Anna, fasted and prayed. Some of you are here for a combination of all those. So, they found Jesus. Let's go back to the scriptures. So, thinking he was in their company, they travelled on for a day. Then they began looking for him among their relatives and their friends. When they didn't find him, they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. So, somebody read verse 46. Where did they find him, Stuart?
You want me to read it or tell you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, read it. Where did they find him?
After 3 days, they found him in the temple court, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions.
So Jesus chose to leave his mum and dad while they went back home. He went back to Jerusalem, and that's where he was. What do we learn from Jesus' priorities at that moment? Let's look at those. They found him in the temple courts. Every year there were these festivals that would happen, and Jews would come and they'd go to the temple to offer their sacrifices. But in the outer part of the temple court, a lot of other visitors would come through and look and hear what was happening and listen. The children were in the temple court praising God. We read that this morning. This is the outer area where people would gather because people were talking about faith. So Jesus wanted to go to a place where people were talking about spiritual things. That was his priority. As I read that, I want to ask the question, how much time do we spend in places where people are talking about spiritual things? Now, we come here on Sunday. And that's a good place. We're in a place where we're talking about spiritual things. But is this the only time in your week when you're in a place where you're talking matters of faith and life? Because if it is, I think we can do better. I'm challenged. So where can you be to be in a place where there are conversations around spiritual things? Name some place. At home. So in your Bahith, that's the place where you're in the temple courts, where there's an intentional commitment to talk about matters of life, reading the Bible, talk about faith. Where else can you be? In the community. Now, how can you talk about faith in the community? Give me an example.
Well, we go to a lecture and Isaac's house.
You go to someone's house for a meal. Is there an intentionality about talking about spiritual things? Often we talk about football. And that's good. But let's keep matters of life and faith on the agenda. So we are following this example of Jesus to be in a place where we're talking about matters of faith. You may have a home group, a Bible study, meet someone for coffee. But when we're talking about that, just talking and listening, that helps us grow. So Jesus was found in the temple courts. What comes next? Whereabouts in the temple courts? Somewhere.
Sitting among the teachers.
Sitting among the teachers. So within the temple courts, there are people who are teaching. And people would go and they would listen to the teachers. Now some people, imagine here's a teacher sitting, that is a teaching position, teaching away. Some people would walk by and they'd listen and they'd keep walking. I walk over here, another teacher over here, and they sit and they listen. A lot of people walk by, but it says Jesus was, what's the verb? Sitting. Now if you choose to sit, you're making a commitment. You're making a commitment. Sorry. You're making a commitment to stop and listen. Rather than just walking by, just having a passing interest, Jesus sat and he listened. In other words, he stopped what he was doing. Now, I don't know about Gibraltar, but Australia is a busy place, and people just, they work too hard. Always busy, busy, busy. How are you today, Michael? I'm busy. It's a common answer. For Christians, that's a danger. We need to stop. We need to sit. We need to sit among the teachers. So, Sunday morning, you're sitting here listening to some teaching. We've had teaching before. So there's a place you can sit and listen to the teachers. Where else can you sit among the teachers in your week? Where can you sit among the teachers so you can grow?
In school.
Sit in a school? Do they teach matters of faith at your school? No. Where can you as adults, we're talking to adults today, where can you, in the course of your week, stop what you're doing to listen to the teachers?
God channel.
Huh?
God channel. You can see the
God channel?
Yeah.
On the TV? Yeah. Very good. Internet. There's all sorts of teachings and podcasts that you can listen to in the fullness of life. But to stop and to actually sit among the teachers. We have technology today. We can sit among the best teachers in the world to this. Don't just restrict us to Sunday morning listening to Michael or whoever Ross is to preach. Find other ways. Jesus was sitting among the teachers. So, if you don't know how to, when you are talking with your friends, how can I listen to somebody? How can I sit among teachers? I want to grow. When I stop and sit and read a book, I'm sitting among a teacher. A teacher who stopped and written down all they've known in a book. So that's part of this commitment to growth, is sitting among the teachers. What else was he doing? What next? Got your verse? He was in the temple court, sitting among the teachers. What was he doing?
Listening.
He was listening to them. Now, I'm married, and my wife can come home from work, and I can say, how was your day? And off she goes. And what am I doing?
Listening.
What should I be doing? What am I doing? Do you love me, Spirit? Listening, like sitting, is a commitment. Sitting, I'm going to stop, I'm going to sit. Listening is, I am going to listen. Now, I'm sure you'll be shocked by this, Michael, so close your ears. You've probably sat here some Sunday mornings listening to Michael, walked out and thought, what did Michael say today? Because maybe you weren't listening. So maybe but listening is an act, it's a commitment, it's a priority. We've got to work at it. To pray that the Spirit of God will give us the ability to stop thinking about Sunday lunch, or about football, or about holidays, or about work, but to listen. If we want to grow, it's a commitment. Listening to them. And what else was he doing? He was asking them questions. He was so committed to listening, he wanted to know more. Asking the questions. That's a commitment to finding out more, to grow. We talked this weekend about the importance of questions in the everyday. We need to be asking questions. When life doesn't work properly, when stuff happens in life, we've got to ask questions about why didn't God do that? Why didn't He stop that? Or these are the questions we need to ask so that we together can grow. This was Jesus' example. In the temple court, sitting with the teachers, listening to them, asking them questions. Jump down to verse 51. And what's the last thing? Yes, sorry.
Sorry, but some question Jesus was asked the teacher. I mean, he was evidently well. I mean,
Son of
there
God.
were pictures because he was a savior, don't he?
Yeah.
So what question?
What do you think? That's a good question.
What's the question he was asking? But he knows everything.
He's not asking to himself. He's asking so they realise the truth.
Yeah, I think maybe the questions are to challenge their thinking.
Maybe because he was wanted to know what the other people were.
Maybe. Yeah, testing what they believe. Yes. I think I agree with you, so.
Jesus would have learned as well if he went on.
Yeah.
To know everything as a baby. He learned.
I think it is also a sign of humility, humbling himself before this, per se, the learned people of that time, wanting to grow and knowing things, because as of that time he was son of God, but the infilling, if I may use the establishment of his mission has not come to be. So he was like humbling himself, learning.
Yes. Good. This is sitting among the people. Therefore, we're asking questions. As we read the scriptures, these are the sorts of questions we need to be asking. I asked yesterday about the boy with his 5 loaves and 2 fish. Do you think other people had bought some lunch that day? The scriptures doesn't say that, but I think there were other people who had their lunch. So let's get into the story, and to ask questions, to deepen our understanding so that we grow. All of this so that we can grow. And the last example Jesus had in verse 51 is, when Jesus was obedient to what his parents said. Verse 51. He obeyed what his parents said. Now, we are children of the living God. And if God is saying things to us, we follow Jesus' example. We obey. You pause a moment and invite you to stand. So as best you can, I'd like you to take a step forward, which represents in. In. Sit. Sit. Listen. Listen. Ask. Obey. I'm fully open. One more time. Can we stand? Do it again, please. These are the 5 things that Jesus did. 1, he was in the temple court. 2, he was sitting, listening to the teaching. 3, he was listening to them. And he was asked questions. And 5, he obeyed. The result of all that, to read the last verse in chapter 2, it says that Jesus grew in wisdom and in stature and in favour with God and in favour with men. When you have a strategy that's about sitting and listening and asking and obeying, and I'm missing one out, we will grow. We will grow. And above all, that's what Jesus wants us to do. To grow, so that we can be more like him each day. Yes.
Interesting that he grew in favor with God. You think he would have already had God's favor?
Let's go. I didn't finish. Have they all been not finished?
No, it's not.
All right. Let's unpack each of those. Jesus grew in wisdom. Wisdom. Now, we live in a world where we are drowning with information. We have this thing in Australia called Google. It might come to Gibraltar one day. But information is there about everything. But we are starving for wisdom. Wisdom is not information. Wisdom is how do you apply information to your life. Wisdom. So Jesus, as a result of his strategy of sitting in and sit and listen, ask and obey, he grew in wisdom. And so will we, if we spend time to do those things and have those habits and traditions. He grew in stature. It's a funny word, this one here. Stature. Reputation. Let me explain it this way. What would people say about you if you weren't in the room? That's your stature. That is your reputation. And as Christ followers, He wants us, as Paul said, be imitators of me as I am of Christ. So I want my stature to grow and increase. So I need to work towards that. Jesus grew in favour with God. With questions to it. How did Jesus grow in favour with God? Well, I think everything Jesus did delighted the Father, because Jesus came to do the will of God. And that was finally shown on the cross, where He did what His Father asked of Him. So as God saw Jesus setting this example and saying these things, I think He grew in favour with God. Are we growing in favour with God? Are you growing in favour with God by your habits, by your practices, by your traditions? Is He seeing you grow? Are you putting a smile on His face? That's the question. And He grew in favour with men. He grew in favour with people. Christians having a good standing among their fellow brothers and sisters. That's what we need. We are salt and light, Jesus said. So, is your salt adding flavour to other people's lives? Is your life bringing light to other people's lives? That's what we want. So that we grow in all of those things. So, here's the question. Are you growing up? Are you growing up? Or are you asleep? This is a fly that you find in Africa. You know the fly? That's a fly. That's a fly with sleeping sickness. But to you, a sleeping sickness. Maybe there are too many Christians who've been bitten by the tsetse fly, sleeping. Because they're not actively trying to grow. They're not doing things to grow. Revelation chapter 3 talks about a church that had gone to sleep. And it says, wake up. Wake up. Strengthen what remains. Remember what you've received and heard, and obey it, and repent. So, if we are wanting to grow, let's not be asleep. Let's be awake and alert. Peter said, if you want to grow in grace. Grow in the knowledge of our Lord and of our Saviour Jesus Christ. Paul says, keep growing until we reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of Christ. That's why we grow. Paul said, I press on toward the goal. He kept growing. So if the Apostle Paul had that goal, if Jesus had that goal, that's the example who's gone before us. So let's grow up. Amen? Amen? Now, let me introduce you to the paradox of the Christian faith. That's a big word, paradox. Paradox is the definition, an opinion or a statement that is the opposite of what most people think. Now here's the paradox of the Christian faith. Jesus gave us an example to grow up. Revelation to the church, wake up. Peter and Paul wrote and said, grow up. But there's another command that Jesus wants us to do today. And that is this. Think about the world's definition of success is about climbing the ladder to get higher. That's what the world says, isn't it? Yeah. And to go higher on the ladder, you're successful. To get higher on the ladder, sometimes you have to kiss the feet of those above you and get their favour. And while you're doing that, you're walking all over other people below you. That's what the world says is success. What did Jesus do? Jesus wasn't at the bottom of the ladder trying to get high. Jesus began at the top of the ladder. He began in heaven. And Philippians says, Jesus chose to leave heaven and he stepped down to become born as a human being. Then he stepped down to be born as a servant. Then he stepped down to choose to die. Then he stepped down to die a death on the cross. You see how Jesus leads an upside down kingdom. Upside down. So while He wants us to grow up, He also wants us to grow down. He wants us to grow down. And I know this because some children were trying to come to Him and some adults tried to stop them. And Jesus said, no, let the children come, because the substance these belong to the kingdom. And unless you become like a child, grow down, you won't inherit the kingdom. So, see the paradox? We want to grow to be more like Christ, but at the same time, let's not lose the childlikeness within our faith, so that we grow down, fully dependent upon our Father, not independent as adults, as though trying to do. So let's pray this prayer, which will be on the screen, which is a prayer of commitment to grow down. I'll say my part, you can say your part. When we have grown up and left not just the childish but the childlike things behind, when we've stopped asking questions and stopped dreaming about tomorrow and stopped believing in better days, Lord, help us to grow down, help us to become like children. Sorry. When a rag doll is no longer enough, we want the best of everything. When we have substituted quantity for quality and expense for value. When we disregard the wisdom of previous generations as if we had the monopoly of the truth. Lord, help us to grow down, help us to become like children. When we no longer want to cheer David against Goliath, or fear for Daniel in the lion's den. When miracles have changed from wonders to problems, when the Bible becomes a textbook rather than a picture book, when in our grossest naivety we regard so much of faith as fit only for children, Lord, help us to grow down. Help us to become like children. And yes, help us to grow down. Lest standing tall and full of self-importance, we never feel your hand resting on our head, or see you kneeling at our feet, wanting to wash the dirt of the years away. When, in the face of your cross, we see clearly what adults can do, Lord, help us to grow down. Help us to become like children. Lord, hear our prayer and make our hearts as human as was the heart of Jesus, in whose name we pray. Amen. So, let's take a moment of silence and reflection. What is Jesus saying to us today about growing up? And what is Jesus challenging us today about growing down? Have we become too adult, too independent? Have we lost that childlikeness? So, take a moment of silence and I'll concentrate. Lord Jesus, we thank you for your example so long ago, just as a young boy, that making a priority, doing things that you could grow, and so please your Father. So Lord, continue to encourage us and challenge us about how we can follow your example when you were a boy and when you grew up to be a man. Thank you for your example of your total commitment to the will of the Father, and again for going all the way to the cross. We have grateful hearts, Lord, thanking you. And Lord, we thank you for your Holy Spirit. You know that we cannot do life without your help, so thank you for your generous gift of the Spirit, who day by day fills us. May we be conscious of your Spirit's presence and power, helping us make commitments and priorities in the middle of life, in the midst of the world's messages. Help us to make wise choices so that we can grow up to be more like you, and grow down to continue being like a child, totally dependent, fully trusting in you. Lord, this is our prayer. We ask this in